Hi folks, welcome back to the channel, or to the channel if you're a first time viewer. This is going to be a book haul video, only my second of the year. The last one was a number of weeks ago and came from the unlikely source of the Windermere Record Fair of all places. And prior to that, the last book haul I did was back in October of last year. So early part of the year, I wasn't buying many books. But in the last month, my book buying's gone through the roof again, I'm afraid. I've got, I think, around probably 70 books here to show you. So I think I'm going to have to split this video probably into two. First part will deal with horror and crime mainly, and the second part will be the science fiction and fantasy books I've bought in the last month. So let's get on with it. And first off, a non-genre book actually, one of my favourite authors of all time, P.G. Wodehouse, with Service with a Smile, one of his Blandings novels. Absolutely adore Wodehouse. I think he's one of the funniest men that ever wrote in the English language. Particularly adore the Jeeves and Wooster books. I hear, I hope it's not true, but I hear that they're thinking of putting warnings or even editing his work to make them more palatable to modern sensibilities. I really hope not. I think that's an insult to the readers. But everybody should read Wodehouse. Brilliant, brilliant author. Next up, a couple of crime novels. And we have Agatha Christie. I always try and pick up some Christie if I see it in the second-hand shops, or as these were bought in a charity shop. I've got The Body in the Library, a Miss Marple tale, which I've just read recently. Excellent, up to her brilliant standards. Didn't guess the identity of the murderer. And we have a Hercule Poirot novel, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Excellent stuff. I like my crime novels, but I tend to be at either limits of the spectrum, either like cozy crime fiction a la Agatha Christie, or I go for more extreme serial killer, virgin on horror type novels. But lovely, quick reads. And talking of crime that verges on horror, another author that I will always pick up if I see his books in the charity shops, and these two I managed to find, is John Connolly, and this is A Book of Bones and A Song of Shadows. Both of these feature his main character, Charlie Parker, ex-police officer turned detective. Great character, great supporting cast of characters in these books as well. As I said, these do verge on horror, and increasingly in the series that the supernatural is brought into play. I've read the first three in the Charlie Parker series, and they were excellent. So as I say, I pick up odd ones when I see them in the charity shops. Still haven't found the fourth one though, so I can't continue yet with the series. But for what, 40, 50p, they've got to be bought. What do we have next? I think next we're going to go to all the rest, I think, are horror novels. Sorry for that. And I'm going to start with a couple of books that I got off a friend, John. He's a member of the vinyl community, where his channel is Mr. Baggy Hi-Fi. Great channel. If you're into music, you should watch his channel. But he sent me 2 horror novels by the same author. We have The Lonely by Andrew Michael Hurley and his novel Starve Acre. It's not an author I was ever aware of, but I've just finished this one last night, and I really enjoyed this. This is an understated, creepy, unsettling novel of folk horror, really. Highly recommended. I think The Lonely is in the folk horror subgenre as well. And if it's as good as this, I'm really looking forward to reading that. Thank you, John, for those books. Just up my street. More charity shop pickups now. We have The Strain by Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan. Del Toro obviously being more famous as a filmmaker, made films like Kronos, Devil's Backbone, Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, Shape of Water. Brilliant filmmaker. And this is a horror novel that he's written with Chuck Hogan. It's in that sort of Stephen King's The Stand sort of vein. It's about a contagion, sort of vampiric contagion that takes over the world. I read this when it first came out, I think years ago, and really enjoyed it. It's now part of the first book in a trilogy. Not read the second and third, but I'm really looking forward to rereading this. I don't know how the workload is split between Del Toro and Hogan. I don't know if Del Toro's the ideas man and Hogan the writer, or they both collaborated equally on the book. But like I say, I remember it being really good. I'm looking forward to trying to pick up the second and third in the trilogy. Wonder if he'll ever make it into a film or a TV series. The one author you see tons of in the bookshops is Dean Koontz. I've got about 25 of his books, of which I think 20 are still to be read. I enjoy his work. He's a writer of suspense and horror. I wouldn't put him up there as one of the greatest writers. His books can be a bit hit and miss, but generally they're enjoyable. So when you see tons of them, more than probably even Stephen King in the charity shops. But this one particularly was great because it's virtually unread. Well, it is unread, I think. This is Soul Survivor. Not sure when this goes back to 1979. So again, Don't know when I'll get round to this, seeing as I've got about 20 others of his books to read. But like I say, always enjoyable. Now, the rest of these came from a visit to Michael Moon's bookshop, which normally there aren't that many horror books in there, and generally they're not in great condition. Same with horror books, most horror books that I find in the charity shops too. But he must have had a recent purchase off somebody. I imagine maybe a lot of these came from the same person. And I came away with a ton of horror books. First one, hardback, and that's Night World by F. Paul Wilson. This is part of, is it called the Night World series? Yeah, a 6-novel cycle of cosmic wonder and horror that stretches from the dawn of time to the day after tomorrow. I think this started off with the novel The Keep, which I read donkey's years ago, which you might know because it was turned into a film with a soundtrack by Tangerine Dream, one of my favourite electronic groups. So this is the final novel in the 6-book cycle. So I need to find the first 5. Like I said, I read The Keep, but it's one that went the way of most of my books in the big purge. I'd like to get it back. Slugs by Sean Hudson. Sean Hudson. One female slug can lay 1.5 million eggs a year, a fact that holds terrifying consequences for the people of Merton. In the dank, dark cellars, they are acquiring new tastes, new cravings for blood, for flesh, for human flesh. Excellent stuff. Not going to be a great literary book, but it's going to be good fun, I think. When was this? It's published by Star. Originally from 82. This is an 87 reprint. An author that I read 2 or 3 books by back in the day and enjoyed is Graham Masterton. I think I read The Manitou, which was his first book, and Night Wings, I think it was called. Both of those books were turned into series by the author, but I managed to pick up these 2 from the bookshop. This is Family Portrait, a brilliant chiller of ultimate evil. Which is it's got a bit of damage to the front, but it's not too bad. He's a good writer. I've enjoyed his stuff. He's wrote tons of stuff. I think he's also written in the thriller vein. This is from 1985, so one of his earlier works. And along with that, one I hadn't heard of, The Sleepless, which is a later novel from 1993. So that's Graham Masterton. Going to one of the big names in British schlock horror in the 70s, Guy N. Smith with The Walking Dead. Hungry, seductive death beckoned from the black depths of the sucking pit. Excellent stuff. Short novel, only about 150 pages, from 1984. Obviously, most famous, I think, for his Crabs series of books. I think the Crabs is about the only one of his I've ever read before. Again, just good, schlocky fun. Next, an author that I always thought was British for some reason, because I think he was more popular over here than in his home country of the States, at least early on. And he gets an awful lot of love on BookTube. I see so many videos reviewing and showing collections of his works, which surprises me. And that is Richard Lehman. I've got here, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books by him that Michael Moon had in stock, all in decent condition. This is probably about the worst one, with a bit of creasing on the spine. This is Darkness Tellers, which is a 1991 novel. The only works I think I've read by him was The Cellar, his first work, and I might have read a couple of others way back, but he tends towards the extreme horror sort of vein. I don't know how each of these books I'm going to show are rated in his works, but I'm looking forward to trying him out again. Like I say, a lot of people on BookTube like him. So apart from that, I got Flesh, which is a 1988 novel. We've got The Cellar, his first, I think, book, and the one I've definitely read, remember enjoying it, which is along with The Beast House. Now The Cellar turned into the Beast House series, of which I think there are 4. Cellar's the first, Beast House is the second. Yeah, the sequel to The Cellar. So there's 2 others written later. The Cellar is from 1980 and Beast House from 86. Remember this being fairly gruesome. Carrying on with Lehman, we've got All Hallows Eve. See? It's always surprising to find horror novels in decent condition with unbroken spines. We have Beware. The Glory Bus. And finally, one that I think, if I remember rightly, is particularly liked by a lot of his fans, Night in the Lonesome October, which I think is meant to be a bit less gruesome and schlocky than a lot of his other work. So I might give that one a try first. An author I've always heard a lot about, but very rarely see any of his works, even in the normal bookshops. Bentley Little. This is his book Evil Deeds from 1992, originally published in the US as Death Instinct. He's quite a prolific author. Like I say, I've never read anything by him, though he does get a lot of praise. So another newbie and another new author to me is Ed Gorman. And I've managed to pick a couple of his books up. The Long Midnight and Serpent's Kiss. Being called here the master of dark suspense. When were these books produced? 1999 for Serpent's Kiss. And similarly for The Long Midnight. Like I say, I've not read anything by him before, not really even heard of anything. So if you know what the works of Ed Gorman are like, let me know. And an author I really do like a lot is Dan Simmons, and this is one of his early horror novels, Song of Kali. It was down to his horror novels that I first got into Dan Simmons with a book. I've read this before, and books like Carry and Comfort, which is excellent. One of my favourite books of recent years was by him, which was The Terror. But he's also famous as a science fiction writer, the writer of Hyperion and Fall of Hyperion, the whole Hyperion Cantos, as it's called. Excellent writer. So I'm looking forward to revisiting some of his early horror works. Those were all the ones I got from Michael Moons. But I also bought 3 off eBay. And let's get them in the right order. Vampire World by Brian Lumley. This is book 1 in the series, Blood Brothers. We've also got book 2, The Last Eerie. And book 3, Blood Wars. Massive, big, thick tomes, around 800 pages. Love the work of Brian Lumley. I first came across him with a lot of his Cthulhu Mythos stories, and with obviously the Necroscope series that he's probably best known for. I'm trying to search out the Necroscope series. I really want to reread that. I read that a long time ago. I can't remember whether I ever tried the Vampire World ones. But I really am looking forward to these. This is epic horror fantasy with vampires, obviously. I don't know if there's any link to the Necroscope series. Got a feeling there might be, but so pleased to pick these up. Got these from a charity shop that sells on eBay. I think a hospice charity, and I think they were about a tenner for the 3, which wasn't bad. Well, that's the horror side of things. I'll come back shortly with the books that I've managed to buy in the SF and fantasy genre, which will be the larger video. So see you then. Bye.